Welcome to CoramBAAF Conversations, a podcast series dedicated to adoption, fostering and kinship care. We ask children's social care professionals and experts by experience to join us to share with us and you, our listeners, their experiences, reflections and knowledge. I hope you enjoy.
Hello to everyone listening. I'm Jo Francis, CoramBAAF's publishing manager. And today I'm talking to Jill Seeney, the author of some of CoramBAAF's most popular children's books. You may know her books Morris and the Bundle of Worries and A Safe Place for Rufus. When not writing children's books, Jill is a fostering and kinship training manager at West Sussex County Council and has a great deal of experience in the sector. Jill, it's great to have you with us today.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Really nice way to end the week.
Jill, we're speaking to you today as CoramBAAF has just published a new children's book, Where Did My Dinosaur Go? But your children's books have been bestsellers for some years now. What do you think initially made them so popular and keeps them so popular today?
Yeah, well, just to say at the beginning, I have a copy of Where Did My Dinosaur Go? And I think it's great. It's really lovely to see a care experienced adult doing the illustrations, and I really like the idea of a team project that involves care experienced young people, carers, and has got a psychology base to it. It talks about children who've moved several times, which sadly is sometimes the case, and it's all about how you establish trust, which is so important for children. When I first wrote Morris, there were hardly any therapeutic stories out there back in 2007, which is clearly there are a lot of stories out there now, which is great for children. But I think really with Morris, moles are very funny little characters, aren't they?
They are.
And I think a mole who has worries and keeps them underground is quite a good way of representing children bottling things up. You know, hopefully I think children must relate to him because he has been around for a little while now. And I think with Rufus the cat, cats are popular in children's stories, aren't they? They're easy animal to relate to, and a lot of children it's important to think of having a safe, cozy place where you can feel okay, and particularly for children who have moved a lot. And I think that maybe appeals, that idea of a safe place, and not only thinking about moving home, moving school. Foster carer that I work with now, who often gives children a soft fluffy cushion when she's going out as something to hold on to, hold that memory of her when they're feeling insecure. It's quite a simple idea, and often the simple ideas work the best. Yeah, I mean, Morris and Rufus have both travelled very widely, because I keep track of their movements from time to time, and they've certainly travelled a lot more widely than I have. And you know, it's brilliant to hear that they're in different countries across the world. So
we have translations now in several different countries, so they have clearly struck a chord for a lot of children, I would say.
So it's wonderful that they're still around and still appealing to people. But the thing I should say, which is really key, is Rachel Fuller's illustrations, which are amazing. I think they still look great, and for me the illustrations are absolutely key to a book, and with your new book that's out, they've got to appeal to children.
Most definitely. Shout out to Rachel there, she did do a very good job. I mean, so looking at Morris particularly, that's your first children's book. In case listeners aren't familiar, Morris the mole has a lot of worries that distress him and mean he can't go to sleep. But he learns that discussing his worries with others can help deal with them and even make them go away. And I must admit, Morris has always been a favourite with CoramBAAF staff. The book was even read to a child by Queen Camilla on a visit to Coram's offices. What first made you think of writing a children's book, and where did you specifically come up with the idea for Morris and his worries?
So, I mean, just in relation to Queen Camilla, that was
Yes.
incredible. I had to read that email several times to believe it. It was just a piece of wonderful serendipity and very good timing for me to get that as well. So, yeah, I feel very fortunate with that. But I think in terms of being a social worker, it's always been really important for me to be creative in my work.
Yeah.
I don't work much now directly with children, but I have done in the past. And Morris's story actually came from a child who I worked with, who was very troubled, really emotionally struggling, and had some mental health difficulties. I had to go and visit them, and it was quite a long journey. And actually the story came as I was driving backwards and forwards, because I was really worried about that child. And the story kind of, I don't know, it came out of the ether to me, and it helped me to process what was actually a really difficult time, because there was very little that I could do at that point to support him. And I find the ideas come to me when I'm on the move, either on a train or in a car. And it felt like something really positive to come from a difficult situation, because I felt that if he had had an opportunity to speak about his worries earlier on, maybe things wouldn't have been so difficult for him. And I thought it would be really helpful for children to be able to think about that, and how you come to the point of being able to share those worries with you. My daughter, who was 9 at the time, did the original drawings, because I thought it would be helpful to have some drawings. And we did get to a point where she said, "Oh, not another mole drawing, Mummy. Have I got more to do?" And I did end up tracing some of them but I've still got one of her little drawings up on the wall. And but it certainly came from a difficult piece of work, and it was really good to have something positive to give back to children, to hopefully help other children in similar circumstances.
And have you used Morris, the book, yourself when working with children? And what's the sort of reaction that you've seen from children or from foster carers?
I've not actually used Morris directly myself with children, but I've certainly recommended him to carers and to colleagues. And one of the best things for me has been hearing back that children have really got something from it, and hearing that Morris's story really clicked with them and maybe enabled them to talk about something that they had found difficult. My son was in hospital when he was very young, and I gave a copy to the hospital later on, and I know that they were really happy to have it and use it with children in a hospital situation. I've also used it. I used to run a storytelling course for student social workers about how to engage children in doing direct work. So I've used Morris for that. And I have even heard some adults who've liked the story, because I think there's definitely a worry gene that runs in my family, and just helping to think about sharing worries is always a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And of course, the theme of worries is quite universal, children and adults. And Morris is notable in that the story never explicitly mentions fostering or adoption or kinship. Although, of course, on our website, we do make clear that the book is ideal for use in those areas. Do you think that kind of universality has helped its appeal?
Yes, I think it has. That was very deliberate, that I wanted it to be wide-ranging in terms of making it available to lots of children, but also in terms of that message that children who are fostered and adopted, who are with kinship carers, can have similar worries as well. And I think one of the great beauties of books is that they do relate to children's play, and children can relate to them on the level that they want to. So they can read a story and think, "Oh, this is a story about a mole with some worries. Okay, it's a nice story. There's some nice pictures." Or they can start to think about, what are those worries that Morris has got, and you can talk about that. Or you can then begin to think about, "Oh, I've got some worries," and share those if the child wants to. And the idea of the the different types of worries, the feathery little worries that we all have from day-to-day things, and then thinking about the much deeper things, the terrors that could be something very deep-rooted from a trauma experience in their background. And it's very much up to the child when they want to share that. But I really wanted to make it so that children had that, were able to use it in whichever way they would like to. I think people like Margot Sunderland talk about children relating on different levels, and just to give it as wider scope as possible, really. The other thing, in terms of recommending Morris and Rufus and where they've been used, I have occasionally stalked Morris and Rufus. I think it's okay to stalk a mole, isn't it?
Absolutely.
On the internet, and I know that Morris has been used in primary schools. I've seen videos being used in primary schools, so it does seem to have that wide appeal. And I've seen a similar one for Rufus, I think, being used as therapeutic stories by different trauma organisations, and brilliant to see that happening.
In fact, I recall that we've had a couple of letters from primary school children come to CoramBAAF talking about how they've read Morris in class. And these are children who weren't adopted or fostered, but who connected to it on a more universal level, and wanted to tell us about that. So,
oh wow, that's lovely. I mean, that is just simply the best. I think hearing that, that's the best thing about doing these books.
Search the CoramBAAF online bookshop. We take pride in offering the largest and most comprehensive collection of publications and resources on adoption, fostering and kinship. Our carefully curated selection is designed to provide you with everything you need to make informed decisions, gain valuable insights and receive expert advice and support. Visit corambaaf.org.uk/books for more. So, A Safe Place for Rufus was your second children's book, and it was another big hit. For listeners who aren't familiar, Rufus the cat moves to a new place, but he finds it hard to settle and he doesn't feel safe. He tries various different spots around the house and the garden before he finds the perfect spot that makes him feel safe again. And of course, there's a strong identification between the story and children moving to new places. So how did you come up with the idea for Rufus?
Well, funnily enough, I had a cat from Cat Protection who arrived around that time. And he arrived with a blanket, and he promptly sat in a cupboard with his blanket for about 3 months.
That's amazing.
And it was very difficult to get him out. So I think that certainly triggered the start of that idea. I'm very conscious from the work that I've done that a lot of children have really difficult transitions. And I think it's an area of work that we need to improve on. So I thought it would be really good to do that. I think I had quite a difficult move when I was 7 as well, which, maybe something resonated there. But as I said earlier, I think objects and places can be really important for the children before they establish trust in adults, or maybe, when they're moving from one place to another. As I said, a cushion, another object can be really helpful. So that story kind of wrote itself in a couple of weeks. The character, I know people say that, but it does actually happen. The character kind of appeared, and it just wrote itself quite quickly. And it is a very simple idea, I think. But again, I had a lot of fun with it.
It was simple but incredibly effective. I think this one has definitely struck a chord with a lot of readers, I think. In both of these books, a short booklet for adults is included with suggested questions to discuss with children to ensure they get the most out of the story. What have you heard from carers and workers about their use of these booklets?
I think people really appreciate them. Thinking about new carers, they often worry about getting it right, what you say to children, and how do you start to ask them questions from a story or whatever. Those booklets are so helpful, and I know you do that with a lot of the books, because it kind of gives you prompts, ideas about how to approach things. And obviously different individual children, different things will work.
Yeah.
But it might trigger an idea for the carer as well of something else. So I think they're really, really useful. And in your new book about the dinosaur, there are lots of really helpful questions in there about how carers could use it. So yeah, certainly I've had feedback that people find that, really helpful, and they're there if you want to use them, and if you don't and you just simply want to read the story. And the idea is that if a child really likes a story, you may use it several, children like to reread them, don't they? And
you might have to read that story quite a number of times.
And you might use a different approach.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely.
And I mean, we're straying into direct work territory here, and I do hear more these days about the importance of direct work with children and how perhaps agencies are trying to prioritise this, perhaps more than in the recent past. What are your feelings on this, this increased attention?
I really, really hope that's the case. I mean, it's something that's gone right through my career, right from the beginning. I've always thought that direct work with children is incredibly important. And we're working with children. We need to be involving them in a way that is meaningful to them, and using play and stories, because that is their world. And when you think of models like Secure Base, Gillian Schofield and Mary Beak, which is an amazing, simple model, it is all about how we relate with children, how we develop trust, how we help them to manage feelings, develop their self-esteem, etc. And I don't think you can do that unless you're relating on the child's level. So I'm delighted that there's more emphasis on that. I think there's much more emphasis on voice and participation, children in care councils as well. They're having much more say in what they feel we should be doing. That is absolutely the way it should. So books very much fit into that.
There's nothing quite like sitting with a child and reading a story, is there? It's universal.
Absolutely, for developing that trust, and it's all the non-verbal communication that goes alongside that, and it's fun. I mean, when you think about therapeutic parenting, having a playful approach, and having a bit of fun reading a story is so important.
Well, perhaps a cheeky final question here. Have you ever been asked to autograph a copy of your books? There must be thousands of well-used copies out there.
Yeah, it's great to think of that, if that's the case. I have been asked, sometimes I've been asked by colleagues. I always feel a little bit embarrassed, but I've been asked to colleagues, but I have also, I think one of the things again that I've really enjoyed is giving copies to children, and I have done that over the years where I've thought it would help them, and I've signed a copy for them. And I think maybe my favourite example probably is when I wrote Rufus. In the story, Rufus will only eat pilchards. When he first arrives, and that was based on a great foster carer who I work with, and a child who was placed with her, and he would only eat sweet things for about a year. When he moved, I sent a copy of the book to him with a little explanation of how I'd used it in the story, and wishing him well. So he is certainly a teenager now, but it was really lovely to be able to do that. So the books have brought many amazing opportunities for me that I've really made the most of and enjoyed.
Wow, so this has been a fascinating chat. Jill, thanks so much for speaking to us today. I hope we see many more years of your books helping children.
Thank you, Jo. I just want to say I feel incredibly privileged to have had this opportunity to write these books for CoramBAAF. It's been such fun, and I really would encourage other social workers to think about writing for children. So a huge thank you from me.
For listeners, you can visit our online bookshop and search for Morris and the Bundle of Worries or A Safe Place for Rufus to find out more and to buy. Our website also hosts a catalogue listing all our children's books, so do look out for that. Thank you for listening.
Stay in the loop with all things CoramBAAF. Use @CoramBAAF on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn for the latest updates on organisational news, sector insights and exclusive offers. Don't miss out and join our social media community today.